So next we're going to talk about three somewhat separate features. They're not really connected. I combed through several options of what I could add to this day, and I ended up picking these three because I felt that they were all had similar qualities. They were easy to set up. They added good security, and they were kind of cool. You know, like you want that cool factor when you're doing an exercise. Like, oh wow, that's a powerful product. What ASM can do. So we're going to talk about what each one of these, what the threat is, what the threat we deal with, and then how ASM protects. Very simple. We're going to start with cross-site request forgery. This is one of the OWASP top 10. So first off, if you're not familiar with what this threat is, what it does is it exploits the fact, how many of you use multiple tabs in your web browser when you're doing work? I walk behind many of you, and I know many of you do this. You might have 10 tabs open. Did you know that all those tabs are in the same session? They're all sharing the same session information. So one tab is open to your online banking, and another tab is open to your work email. They're really sharing session information with each other. And that's how cross-site request forgery works, is it exploits that. So the example here is the user logs in to get their online banking page. And then they log in successfully. Now, we don't want to have to make the user log in again every time they click on the link on the page. So the way that the web developers avoid that is they create this session cookie that has our login statistics, our login details, so that now I can navigate all around my website without having to re-log in. As long as I don't close it and reopen it, I'm good to go. Well, that's the exploit right there. That's the vulnerability. Because what happens is the malicious users, the hackers, they create some sort of a clickable link, just like all of these. These are all links. Every single thing on here I can click on, and that'll activate a link. So they'll set up something maybe in an email, maybe on a social media, anywhere where a link can exist. And in this link, you'll see what they're doing is they're going to the bankofamerica.com transfers page. And they're issuing a command that they were easily able to find out just by looking at the code of the Bank of America website. And they're issuing a transfer from the user's account, whatever their account is, and they're logged in, so we know what their account is if they're logged in, to the hacker's account. The hacker put in their account in the form of 25,000 US dollars. And then they send this out to however many people they can send it out to, again, via email, social media, you name it. And people might see this page all over the place. If they try to click on it and they're not connected to Bank of America, something's going to fail. It's not going to work. But for anybody that has a current session open for that particular site, if they click on that link, then it's going to activate the link using their stored session credentials. So in other words, it's going to activate it under their name. They say, sure, yeah, please. I'd like you to do that, and I'd like you to take that $25,000 out of my account and send it to the hacker. And next thing they know, that's what happened. Well, that's kind of scary, huh? Easy for the hackers to do that. The good news is it's easy for us to protect the customers from letting this happen. So to configure this, again, just a couple things that we need to know. We need to know the pages that are being exploited. For example, this was the page being exploited down here. They're trying to do transfers, balance transfers. So we need to know which page, which URL is the balance transfer page. So we need to know that URL. And that's it. That's it, that's all we need to know. Then we're going to go to the BIG-IP CSRF Protection page, make sure we're on the correct security policy. We'll go ahead and enable CSRF Protection. Now by default, the wildcard, we've seen that before. What that means is every single possible URL on this page is now going to take advantage of how ASM protects using CSRF Protection. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it could cause some pages to not work properly. It is very possible. It's also maybe adding more security than we need. So I recommend you actually get rid of the wildcard. We don't want to protect every single URL. And then we'll just add the specific URLs that we identified that are vulnerable, in this case, the transfer page. Save and apply the policy. That's literally all it takes to do this. And here's how the protection now works. All right, so the user is now going through BIG-IP to get to their page. Now they want to make a balance transfer. They want to make a legitimate balance transfer. So they're going to the same link that that hacker had submitted. First, ASM now, because that's a protected page, ASM sends a special little hidden, it's a hidden cookie. It's called a token, CSRF token. The user doesn't know it's there, it's hidden. They could see it if they looked in the web code. You guys will be able to see it if you look in your web code. So now when they make their request, they try to do a balance transfer legitimately from their web browser. It also submits the token along with it. So it's going to use their session information from here, but it's also going to submit the token. ASM is going to check the request to make sure that the token's there and that it's the correct token. No, nothing's been tampered with it. And as long as it's correct, their balance transfer will be fine. But if the hacker has submitted this and now the link is on a different page, the link is not on the same page that the cookie was created, it's not the page that's being protected, the URL that we configured, then when they click on that link, they're going to send a request, but it's not going to send that with it. So that's not going to be sent along with the request. ASM is going to check to see if that token is there. If it's not there, it's going to block the request. Simple as that. That's how it works. So again, I selected 3 features because it's a very big risk and a very quick fix. The second threat we're going to be looking at is called parameter tampering. Parameter tampering is typically done in 2 different ways. Always done by a malicious user, of course, but sometimes the malicious user modifies their own parameters, the parameters of their own request. Sometimes they modify the parameters of a victim's request. Let's look at both of them. The first one, they are, the malicious user is looking on Amazon. They got that nice TV. It's $3,800 US. It's a little expensive. Can't quite afford that. Well, you guys are all technical people. I'd be surprised if you've never used a tool like HTTP Watch or any other mini tools where you can actually view all the parameters, you can see all the values, and you can just go in and modify any of these and then forward the request. And if you forward the request and this target server processes it without questioning it, we have just now gotten a TV for $37. That's not good for the server, for Amazon. The other example is when the hacker is going to tamper a victim's parameters in the form of a man-in-the-middle attack. Let's say we're at the airport and I'm issuing a balance transfer before I get on my flight and I'm using the airport's free Wi-Fi that may not have good security. And so I'm submitting my balance transfer, and there's somebody else in the airport who's got tools to be able to see all the data going around in this free internet, this free Wi-Fi, and they see my request. Oh, look, this person's transferring from a Bank of America account to another Bank of America account, and here's the amount. You know what? Let's change the where we're transferring it to my bank account, and let's actually make it more. And then we'll send the request along. And again, if it's target processes it, then the hacker wins. So that is our parameter tampering threat. To configure the protection, all we need to know is which parameters we need to protect, which parameter values are at risk of being changed. And we need to know one other thing. ASM's very good product, it's a very smart product, but it's not a magic genie. It doesn't know everything. So it does need to know what page in the website does that parameter value get set by the user. When does that parameter value get created? ASM needs to know that so it can identify if the value was changed between the moment it was set and when it arrives at BIG-IP, at ASM. So the way this is done, this is kind of a strange process. If I was building the ASM configuration utility myself, I might do this a little bit easier, but this is the process. So we go to the parameter in question, my price parameter. We're going to change the type, the value type of the parameter to what's called a dynamic content value. Why is it called that? I have no idea. I apologize. I don't know why it's called that. And then you click on Update. And as soon as you click on Update, you're going to get a little notice that says you need to define an extraction. Another strange term. What does that mean? That just means the URL that this parameter set. Maybe that could have been worded a little better. I apologize. So I say, okay, I'm ready to do that. So this is where I'm going to specify the URL and the file type as well. Now if I go back and look at my file, my URL here, I can see there's the URL and there's the file type. I know exactly what I need to know. So I go to my extraction point, I specify the file type. We saw that was JSP. We specify the URL. We saw that one as well. These do need to have already been configured on the file type allowed list and the URL allowed list in order to appear here. Now I'm going to go ahead and save that, apply the policy, and protection is done. It's as simple as that. And again, you'll see that in your exercise. The third feature is probably the easiest to set up for geolocation enforcement. So we all know there are different hotspots in the world of where it's more likely that loads of malicious requests may be launched, an attack while we're under attack. And we can do this in two ways. We can decide ahead of time that we just do not want to allow any requests from Syria, Yemen, Iran, North Korea, whatever geolocations we don't want. We could just decide ahead of time we don't want to accept requests from those places. Or we can wait until we're under some sort of a heavy attack that we're recognizing where it's coming from. And then we can immediately just block all requests from that geolocation then. And until the attack is over, we'll let that happen. And then once the attack is over, we could allow new requests from that geolocation. Very easy to do this. I actually did not know this until about a year or two or three ago, that every IP address out there is attached to a geolocation. It's all been assigned. And I found all this on Google. I just would go in and say, Syria IP address ranges, Canada IP address ranges. You can see all the IP address blocks for every single geolocation. The good news is, if we want to do this in the BIG-IP, I don't have to worry about these IP address ranges. I don't have to plug all those in. I just need to know my geolocation. We make it real easy. So let's say I have just decided ahead of time I want to block those 4 geolocations. No questions asked. We come to our geolocation enforcement over on the right. We select all the geolocations in question, move them over to the left side. We can add a couple of other things here. We can add anonymous proxy. That's typically what's going to happen if somebody's hiding behind another IP address. And we can also add no, not applicable, NA. That's for private IP addresses that don't actually have an associated geolocation attached. You can block those if you want. You don't have to, of course. Once we save and apply, we're done. That's all we have to do it ahead of time. But again, let's say I'm not worried about doing it ahead of time. Or let's just say in this example, I have found a new attack, a major attack that's taking place, and I can select any one of those attack log entries. We have so much data. One of the things I tried to do in all these exercises that you've been doing is introduce you to things you can do in our event log, the filtering options and so forth. So I can see the geolocation. All these attacks are coming from Ukraine. I can quickly just select that little triangle after the geolocation and choose to disallow it. Now this is one of the few things that isn't instantaneous in ASM. It tells you here you still need to apply the policy. Unfortunately, on this page, there's no apply policy button. I wish that was easier. I wish there was like a little button here that lets you apply it. So we could go back, let's say, to our geolocations page. We could still see, now we can see it's there, and I can apply the policy here. If you played it all with our charts, you hopefully got to know that there's a lot of different ways you can view our application charts. A lot of things. So I just wanted to show you that you can also utilize geolocation in your charts as well. So for example, here I'm looking at a lot of legal and block requests. I'm going to drill down and just look at my legal requests. And then this is my view by list box. I'm going to view it by the client countries. So now I can see, I'll scroll down here so you can see, we can see the top sources of all of our legal requests by geolocation. More importantly, I can go view my blocked requests, and I can see the source of all my blocked requests. And of course, we can print this out in a PDF at any time as well. 3 simple features to configure, but big security. They all add a good amount of security that banking sites, e-commerce, they need this. They need this kind of stuff, and it's very easy to configure. So let's try it. Let's configure it. We're going to do all 3 of those. Again, if you want to finish the last exercise, you can. Again, the way that I built these exercises is they're all independent of each other. So if you just want to do this one, you can just start right from this point, this exercise 5, and enjoy.